All right, and we are live now. So, welcome everybody to the Sarcasm and Liberty live stream. This is a special stream we're doing that is just me, Mike, and Tim. And if you're at all familiar with the Sarcasm Liberty live streams, these two should be very familiar. Mike typically hosts our Wednesday live streams every week. How long have you been doing that for now, Mike? You've been doing it for a while now.
Since July.
Okay, so a couple months now, yeah. Yeah. So, and he's been doing a great job with that, actually. I was able to pop on to one of the more recent ones. I've actually been like on a hiatus from live streams, which is when I asked Mike to kind of step up and help out with that. And he's done an amazing job. He's been really great for the team. And then Tim is usually on a lot of their streams, and I believe he's on pretty much every Wednesday stream too. And he's helped us out a lot with a lot of this stuff too. So with these two people, and just to give like the topic tonight is church, what we're calling the Church of Trump. Now, Tim, in a second, I'm going to let you, since you're the one that created this thing, I want you to give your your thoughts and stuff of what led you to decide to make this decision. But there's a Twitter account that the three of us are jointly running together, making posts and whatnot, replying to stuff, called the Church of Trump. And it's a troll account. It's based at making fun of people who religiously believe Trump is like our leader and was chosen by God and all this kind of crazy shit. And I'm not like being, this isn't hyperbole. This is like literally, like, we will post stuff like that and people will like it and share it. It's like, how can you be that insane? It's very eye-opening to how like literally religious people are about Trump. And it's like you cannot like put so much faith into a person. Like me growing up as I've talked about it many times before, I grew up in a very Christian household, and I have major problems with people using religion to justify certain politicians, especially when it's somebody like Trump, who's obviously a very flawed person, and you make excuses for them, because of your religious devotion. It's insane to me. So, well, like I said, Tim is the one that actually set this account up. I've only recently come into helping out with it. So I'm going to let Tim give an explanation about what kind of inspired him to create this account and what he started doing with it.
Okay, so first of all, let me give you a little background. When it comes to religion, most people don't know this. I don't know if you guys know this either. I was a youth director at a church for 6.5 years. I also taught Sunday school for 1.5 years. So I probably know the Bible and the inner workings of how churches work and how they're set up better than most people. So when I see, and I've done a lot of study in different religions as well, when I see the way that a lot of the MAGAs were acting, they were acting like a cult, and their devotion to Trump is very cult-like. And if you look at, there's tons of videos on YouTube. You could see the reactions during these that he has been doing, and he's still doing after the election, the rallies he was doing before the election. Some of them actually look like church revival meetings. The way that people got so excited when he would show up, and the way that people will follow everything that he says as if it's coming directly from the mouth of God. There's a bit of insanity to it. Now, I'm not saying that all of the MAGAs are part of the Church of Trump, which is what I call these people that are utterly devoted to him. But all of the people that are part of this Church of Trump, the ones that are devoted to him unconditionally, are all MAGAs. So when we're talking about the church tonight, and when we refer to the Church of Trump, it is these ultra MAGAs that are just so deeply devoted to anything that this guy says. There have been, and you can, like I said, you can see these videos on YouTube. They did interviews with people during the election cycle saying, what could Trump do to lose your vote? And they're saying absolutely nothing. There was one reporter that asked one of his followers, well, if he were to go, and commit murder in the middle of Times Square, would you still vote for him? And they said yes. So if you're at a point where you're so devoted to a person that there is absolutely nothing that they can do in order to lose your confidence in them and lose your faith in them, then you've reached cult status. And when you go ahead,
it's a scary thought to me that, like, I mean, like I've said before, like my best friend, he voted for Trump, and he's actually become like a very vocal like criticizer of Trump, because like his thing initially was like, he's like, I want him to do well, but if he does something that I think is stupid, I'm going to call him out on it because I fucking voted for that guy. I want this guy to, like, if he does something dumb, it kind of reflects poorly on me voting for him. It makes me look stupid. Like, he became personally offended by stupid stuff that what Trump did. And I actually, like, I mentioned the whole Church of Trump thing where, like, like people are like, God chose him. And he's like, yeah, I think God could probably do better than Trump if he was going to choose a leader.
Well, see,
yeah, it's insane how devoted people can become, like, just kind of blindly devoted.
Well, yeah, and the funny thing is that if you look at the pinned tweet on that account that I created, it says, I believe God has a plan, and that plan is Donald Trump. And people like that tweet. People retweeted that tweet.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, looking at thinking, how insane are you to believe that the plan for the United States is Donald Trump, and you're perfectly okay with that? Because that same thinking.
And, like, I want to say too, though, like, for our viewers, like, this is not hyperbole. Like, it wasn't put up as hyperbole at all. Like, it was a very, very, like, it sounded very sincere. So this isn't a situation where it was just like people were like understood he was joking or something like that. And like, no, like, these people legit believed this stuff.
Yeah, and see, that's the thing. The reason why I set up that account was, and Mike and I had talked about this before I set it up, was I'm going to set it up as if I was a true believer in Trump.
Mm-hmm.
And so for the first month or so, all I did was tweet things like, oh, our great, I kept calling him our great leader, our great leader this, our great leader that.
Real quick. I got screen share on, so I think it should be coming up now. Yeah, this is exactly what Tim was talking about. Hashtag Thursday Thoughts. I think God has a plan. I think Trump has a plan. I think Trump is God's plan. Trust the plan. Trust Trump. And it was just amazing. Like, we had 19 retweets, 36 likes, and this was in the early days that you made this, right?
Oh yeah, that was within the first week.
Yeah. And I mean, like, it's unbelievable.
And I mean, you look, the name of the account there is Real Church of Trump, and at this point, there's about 1,200 followers to this account.
Yeah, we have no. It's actually
1,195.
Yep, yeah. So exactly what you said, about almost 1,200. It's insane, and I'm going to go into more of these tweets as it goes on. But I wanted to share the first one.
Well, while you're there, take a look at the picture. The picture there is Trump depicted as an angel.
Yes. There's I wish I could find it again because somebody shared it recently. There's this picture of Trump, like, in his office, like, writing something, and there's, like, Jesus behind him, like, guiding his hand. And this is, like, how people actually view him. It was so gross that, like, somebody drew that and it was just like, this is, like, how I really feel. I'm like, how can you think that?
Well, I mean, take a look at the insanity that I worked into this. I mean, you look at the bio. The bio says, here to spread the good word that Trump was a gift from God to the USA.
Yes, that's right here.
And look at the location there. USA, greatest country ever.
Mm-hmm.
I went full cult on this, and and here's the other problem with a lot of MAGAs who aren't really cult members, but a lot of them are getting close.
Yeah.
Is that when they do these Trump follow trains, these Trump trains, they will follow anyone that follows these people on these follow trains.
Mm-hmm.
So all you have to do to gain thousands of followers on Twitter is just hashtag MAGA, get on a Trump follow train, and there were some of these people that actually put this account on their follow trains.
Yep.
So they were part of this, and it was so insane that within less than a month, I had over 1,000 followers on this account, and I just kind of drifted off of it for a while because it was just the pure insanity of it was just got me shaking my head, and then I started tweeting some of the most insane things.
Yeah.
And then I invited you guys on there and let you have fun with it, and seriously, some of the stuff that I was tweeting on there, and some of the stuff you guys were tweeting, I'm laughing out loud at looking at this because it's just insane.
We have 200 and I just tweeted something too, but we have 274 tweets so far. I'm always amazed, like what actually gets liked, and something that like I've realized, like when you're doing this kind of stuff, like when you're being trolls, the best way, even when you're doing a regular Twitter account, the best way to get followers is to jump into discussions on like bigger Twitter people's tweets. So I started jumping onto stuff that Trump was saying and just arguing like the dumbest person possible, and people were liking stuff I said. Like here's I think this might have been the one of the first ones I did, which was I'm so amazed that people still try to badmouth President Trump. He is our leader and boss, second to only God and Jesus themselves. God chose Trump to lead our great nation, and everyone needs to trust in God's decision. Thank you, Donald Trump, for all you do. MAGA, Trump 2020. And then somebody actually like retweeted this, and like it's not showing up now. Like I like before there was actually like some likes and stuff. I'm not sure what's going on, but yeah, this guy, like he's a genuine Trump supporter. It's not just some like troll like recognizing that we're being done. Like there's somebody who like read that and was like, that's a great tweet, I need to retweet that, go Trump. And I was like, oh, why? And then here's one, can we deport all Democrats because they hate America? Was that you, Tim?
Yeah, I wrote that one.
Okay, as somebody liked it. It's just insane to me. It's insane to me some of the stuff people will like. I can't pull up some of the stuff I was actually like typing on, but I don't know if I can. I'll see if I can pull it up, because like I was saying some insane stuff. I remember there was one point where I literally started saying to people that they were going to hell for like not supporting Trump, and just create like Jesus was going to send them to hell and God was going to send them, or no, Jesus was going to send them to hell and Trump was going to send them to jail. And like people were like supportive of those completely insane statements. And like, how can you hear that kind of stuff and be like, yeah, that's exactly what I believe? Because like I'm trying, like I was worried some of these things I was saying were gonna like really kind of break it open, and people are gonna be like, oh, okay, this person's being stupid, like they're joking around. But no, people still didn't catch on. People still didn't catch on. Even not even the people that agreed with us, the people that were arguing with us. So it was like, not only is it so insane, like like the people that don't even like Trump can't even recognize the troll status of an account, no matter how ridiculous we get, because
no, they can't.
Yeah, they're dealing with these people day to day, and then it's like,
well, see, here's the problem with that is, quite honestly, that there are people that really talk like this.
Mm-hmm,
there are people that genuinely believe this type of nonsense. So when you have someone that's anti-Trump that engages here, they think they're talking to one of those people.
mm-hmm.
And so that's part of the problem that we have right now, is that in this country, politics is the new religion.
Yeah.
And because of that, we have these two extreme camps right now, where you have the Church of Trump on one side, and then you have the far left on the other side, and they have their ideology. They have very strict core beliefs that they have now, and some of the insanity that's coming from both sides is just unreal. Where they, for instance, on my own Twitter account, I've had discussions with people where, I'm telling them that tariffs are taxes. And just because Trump says that a tariff is good, it doesn't mean that it's not a tax. And I've had people disagree with me, and they're like, "Oh, trust Trump; he knows what he's doing." Well,
God, yeah.
No, and see, here's the thing that I've said is that within the church of Trump, he has his pope, which is Sean Hannity. Because if you remember during the election cycle, and if you remember after the election, Trump has said, I think it was during one of the debates, "Oh, Sean Hannity knows," and he'll sit down and he'll talk with Sean Hannity, and Sean Hannity has said many times on his show, whether it be TV or radio, that he has had conversations with Trump. So he is the Pope. And then you have people that are like the bishops and the priests within the Trump camp. Like Rush Limbaugh is one of these bishops. Bill Mitchell, you can find him on Twitter. He is so far up Trump's butt, it's not even funny. I've had Bill Mitchell on Twitter try to challenge me on something, and then I responded to him, and he refused to respond to me because I shut him down because he was so stupid. The thing is that I will take anyone to task. I will sit there and I will challenge anything that someone has to say that's beyond common sense, beyond reality, and I will hit you up with facts and knowledge, and you can't argue with facts.
Yep. And you can try, but
yeah, you can try, but with the cult status that Trump has achieved, look at Kanye. Okay, Kanye West for the past 10 years has been very loved by the left. Republicans have hated him since he got on TV after Katrina and said George Bush hates black people. The Republican establishment, the Republican Party, everyone on the right has written him off. They all have been saying how crazy he is. He becomes a Trump supporter, and all of a sudden, all of these people that hated him and talked about how crazy he is just love him to death. And just, he's great. Kanye's the best. He's still crazy. I mean, I don't care what side of the aisle he's on. He's still batshit crazy.
Yeah.
But the MAGAs love him now. And
Kanye's not the only one.
Yeah,
but wait, what was that, Mike?
I said Kanye's not the only one. If you remember, Roseanne Barr came out as a Trump supporter. If you remember back in 2012, Roseanne Barr ran for the nomination of the Green Party. The Green Party is to the left of the Democratic Party.
Yeah. Roseanne was she's a serious leftist.
Oh yeah,
she like batshit crazy leftist. The fact that she came out like that, it was just insane. But it's funny how easily people will flip flop as long as you're supporting the guy that you like, And then if you're not supporting it, people are like, well, I don't like this guy because he doesn't, okay, for me, one of my favorite comedians is Bill Burr. He hated Trump and Hillary, but I couldn't imagine these people like previously liking Bill Burr, enjoying everything he'd done, and then coming into the election, oh, he doesn't like my candidate. Well, fuck that guy. I'm not going to listen to his comedy anymore. And then that's exactly how a lot of these people are. Is even if it's a celebrity, and I'm I think taking celebrity endorsements seriously is just the dumbest thing you can do. But it is insane how people will hear that kind of stuff from celebrities and then actually decide to they won't watch shows that celebrity is in. They won't buy products that celebrity endorses because of that kind of stuff. And it's insane, how you can get so ingrained into one side that you're actually you're not really taking in any factors or anything like that. You're so obsessed. It becomes this point of obsession.
Right, but here's the thing about the church is that they've taken the obsession to the extreme. So Roseanne came out and she said that she supports Trump. She thinks he's great. She's a big Trump supporter. Her show gets put back on the air. Ratings are through the roof. Now, when her show came back on the air, I don't know if you guys watched this, but on the show, her grandson was like this 9-10-year-old boy that was wearing a dress.
Yeah.
This is something that's against every church-going, hardcore Trump supporter, but they all watched this show. They were devoted to this show because Roseanne said she supported Trump.
Yeah.
So they're willing to accept something that they never, ever would have accepted before just because someone says, well, I support Trump, so therefore all of these people are now supporting me. I can do basically whatever I want. And so all of a sudden she has this huge new fan base, and all she had to do was just say, well, I like Trump. And so, and that's one example of how the church is just involved in groupthink. They'll follow anything. Yeah. And that's why I looked at the possibility of creating this fake account, and I did it, and all of a sudden there's 1,200 people that decided, oh yeah, this is something I want to be part of, and it's just insane.
There's somebody from the chat mentioned used the term cult of personality, which is a very good point, because like the concept of cult of personality is when there's like a regime or specifically like a specific politician, and they use, like they have this mass media appeal, or like they just a lot of propaganda, lies. They can use like patriotism as a kind of a factor a lot of the times. Rallies and all this kind of stuff, and like kind of really like whipping up the crowd and stuff, and people like start to really idealize this person, and this person becomes this like heroic figure within this community, and and like where you get to the point where like people are almost literally worshiping this guy, like they're viewing him above everybody else, and like there's just it's insane to me. And like that's actually what we're dealing with somebody like Trump. Like I thought it was bad, like the devotion people had to Obama and even Bush. I was just like, how can you like just ignore all this shit that this person's doing? But like the amount of just complete like blinders that people have to put on to just ignore all of Trump's problems, to continue to praise everything he does. Like, yeah, sure, Trump has done some good things as a president. Obama did good things too. Bush did good things. Every president has done some good things. It's kind of impossible to go through 4 years without doing at least one good thing. That doesn't mean that it's a good president, Like, and I've gone on record before for this. Like, I was born in 1985. As long as I've been aware of the concept of politics, I haven't seen a president that I've actually really liked and been like, yeah, he's doing a good job. Like it's insane to me. Like, and there's so many people who just, you start to like, if you have to make excuses, that should be your first hint that the person you're following isn't good. If you feel like you have to like, well, in this situation, blah, blah, blah. Like if you feel like you have to like work around it, if you can't just be honest to yourself, you really need to think about the person that you're following. And that's kind of the problem we have with somebody like I do feel like for the other side, Obama kind of brought this concept of the cult of personality like really into light, where what was that? Get out of here, asshole. Sorry, it was one of the cats. But like he kind of like, that's where I really started to notice that concept of people just being so religiously devoted to somebody that they're willing to make excuses, to just push aside, to deflect like issues and things like that, and not really pay attention to the reality of the situation. And now we're seeing it on the right from Trump, and a lot, like some cases, like, because I feel it's even worse because people are literally using religion to push their beliefs. Now it's not just people being like religiously devoted, they're like being literal, like religious about it. that's what's really scary to me.
Yeah, and I look at it like this, is that the people that believe that Trump was put in place by God, and there are people that believe this, and people that believe that Trump was put in place by God, they have to realize that if that's their belief, then at the same time, Obama was put into place by God. And the other 44 presidents before him were put in place by God. So if that's the case, then you can't argue that anyone was there that shouldn't have been there. That all 45 of these people that were put in office were supposed to be there. Now, then let's take it to the next logical step. That if God put Trump in office, why are we even bothering to vote? Why not just wait until God speaks and puts the next president in office?
Yep.
So
and not only that, but also like the concept of primaries. If you consider a person in politics who you would think is a very godly person, a very devoted person, Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz, evangelical, social conservative, very popular among that crowd. You think a godly person like Ted Cruz would have gotten the memo, hey, don't run for president because Trump has already been chosen. Don't go through trouble.
Well, no, that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, and that also brings up another point too, is that the evangelicals all backed Trump. And this is while Cruz was still in the race.
Yes.
Now, why did the evangelicals back Trump and not Cruz, who is, married to his first and only wife, who is, well stated as being a Christian, where Trump is on his third wife. It's documented well that he's cheated on all of them. And so when it comes to just fidelity alone, Trump loses that battle with Cruz. I really don't understand what the evangelicals saw in this and why they jumped on the Trump train, because it's baffling, to say the least.
And not only that, but they
show you it just goes to show you that religion doesn't really mean what it used to, and these people are not really devout Christians. These people were opportunists.
Yeah,
they saw that Trump was winning in the primaries and he was beating Cruz. So they jumped on board with that. They didn't back the devout Christian. They didn't back the person that showed family values. They backed the person that they thought was going to win. So they saw an opportunity and they jumped on it. So it is partially because of them that Trump has got this cult-like following.
Yeah,
and this religious backing.
Mike, you had a point you wanted to make. It sounded like.
I was going to say. As far as what Tim was saying about Trump's lifestyle and Trump's behavior, you even have his supporters making excuses for that, saying things like, "I voted for him to be my president, not my pastor." Well, if you remember 20 years ago, Bill Clinton was being investigated for things that he did in the Oval Office with Monica Lewinsky, and people were all over that. Now, all of a sudden, you want a president to be, as you call it, your president and not your pastor? I mean, it's just nothing but mental gymnastics when they try to justify the logic that they use.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is that they're using standards that only apply to whoever's in office at the time.
Yeah. Okay, here's I want to bring up the most current point, and then what NJ was bringing up. I promise, man, I'll get to you what you said in a second. But Alicia Roy is bringing up a good point, which, like, I've actually had this discussion recently with somebody, and she says, in the current argument, God is supposed to choose imperfect people, such as Moses, David, and ex-Pharisees. And then biblical history is full of intentionally imperfect leadership. It's part of the plan to use flawed individuals as the voice of God. Now, Tim, from your religious background, I'm going to want to hear from you on this in a sec. My personal rebuttal to that is I do feel like, I understand the point, and I can go back and I can look at those stories, but I do feel like there's a great difference between imperfect and Trump. who I feel is just like isn't the embodiment of the imperfect person who is trying to religiously like lead a nation towards God. You know, I don't see anything he's done as like where I could look at and be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. You know, like sure, he's the imperfect voice of God, but you know, he's trying to push us in this direction. Like, no, he just seems to be doing his own thing, or because he just doesn't know what to do. He just says whatever comes to his mind. That's what I tend to see from Trump. So like, it's hard for me to like I understand the argument, the religious argument that like he doesn't have to be perfect, but I feel he's so far removed from those examples. Any example you could really give, it doesn't necessarily qualify. And I feel like all of those examples made great steps to they made great steps to push people towards Christianity. I don't feel like I've seen that from Trump. I see any appeal to the religious right from Trump always seems opportunistic to me, not something he really truly believes.
Well, let me give it to you very basically. This is why that argument doesn't hold up, because if you look in the Bible and you look at that time period, any time that one of these imperfect people was used for a reason, that reason was to bring the people closer to God. Trump is not bringing anyone closer to God whatsoever. This is not a religious movement. All of those people that were in the Bible that God used at that time were to benefit God's people in a way, people closer to God, and to bring people towards a more righteous path. There is no more righteous path that's being developed by Trump in any way, shape, or form. You can't say that the country is more righteous now than it used to be. You can't, and I've said this many times, you can't legislate morality. And Trump is not a picture of morality. Trump should never, ever be looked at as being a moral example for anyone in any shape or form, nor any policy that he's putting into place, any executive order that he's putting into place, taking this country on a more godly path. So you can't equate the two. And not only that, but our government is a secular government. It's not a godly government. It is not a religious government. It's completely secular. So the trying to justify that what Trump is doing is because he's imperfect and God uses imperfect people. The truth of the matter is that if you look at the Bible, the original sin was when, you know, Adam and Eve sinned in the Garden of Eden, and in the book of Romans it says, you know, all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. Everyone is an imperfect person. So by saying that God uses imperfect people, that's true, because God uses anyone at any time, and we're all imperfect. So the argument is just it just doesn't hold water.
Yeah, and that's an excellent point, Tim. Sorry. Alicia, I do want to thank you for the points you made on that, because that actually led to a really great little discussion there. So I appreciate that. She made one more comment that I feel is definitely worth noting. Cults thrive off of illogical jumps. That's the quote unquote faith component. I definitely feel like that's a good point, where I do feel like that it kind of starts to qualify the concept of like this crazy religious devotion to Trump as a cult mindset, because you have to take so many illogical jumps and just take everything on faith that you're not really like thinking rationally anymore, and then it does start to become more of that cult mindset. You're devoting your life to a human figure as opposed to a godly figure, and that's kind of examples you see. Like anytime you see like an actual example of somebody devoting their life to a human figure as opposed to an actual godly figure, that's more of the cult mindset. And you don't actually have to believe the Bible to at least be able to understand this argument. You know, like you can scholarly just look through the examples of the Bible to make a informed judgment against people using that against you. And I say this as a person who I still consider myself like religious to an extent, you know, and grew up in a very religious household. But yeah, like I looked at the Bible, and like a lot of the times I'm like, okay, like this doesn't match up with what you're saying, you know, why I should hate Obama or why I should love Trump. Like, why is it always like I'm supposed to love who you want me to love? You know, like, you know, it always just seems very suspect to me. And I do feel like there's this great, like, you know, there's always these illogical jumps you have to make to really get to that point. So I got one more comment here, and I'm going to read it real quick before I'm going to jump back to something somebody else said, and then we can discuss this next point real quick. The fanaticism exhibited by some of Trump's supporters, as well as the continued support of Hillary, is astounding. And I do feel like that's a great point, because it's not just the right that has this fanaticism about them, where they're obsessively devoted to a specific person beyond all rationale. I do feel like the right is the one that typically takes it to the religious step. The left typically doesn't, but they do retain that fanaticism about them. And it does make you curious. Like, it doesn't even have to be like the right. It's not, you can't use it as a criticism of religion necessarily, because the right using religion as in this aspect doesn't change the fact that the left does the same thing minus the religion part, the utter devotion to somebody.
You right. People saying that Hillary's president of the United States.
Start again, Mike. I couldn't hear you.
I was saying you still have people saying that Hillary is the rightful president of the United States.
Yep.
I mean, to this day, people are still saying that.
People are still saying, here's how Bernie can win. So, I mean, fanaticism goes a long way. Tim, you had a point.
Well, this is what I was saying in the beginning, is that politics is the new religion in this country, and you have the church on the right side, and then you have the far left on the other side. Mm-hmm. And these are the people that are the resistance. These are the people that, you know, believe that Hillary is the true president of the United States. These are the people that still say I'm with her. These are the people that are, you know, out there wearing their pussy, and they're out there protesting Kavanaugh. This is the left version of this. These are the people of the, you know, the resistance is the left version of MAGA. You know, you have your Antifa crowd. You know, these people, politics is their religion. This is what they devote themselves to. This is what is the most important thing in their lives. And, you know, I think most libertarians are looking at politics as, well, this is a means to an end, and the end is to reduce the size of government. Not this is the end all be all. This is what we need to live, eat, breathe, sleep, and do nothing but this. And I mean, Twitter's a great example of this. If you look at Twitter, and you look at the MAGAs that are on Twitter, and you look at their accounts, it's politics all the time, 24/7. You look at the libertarians that are on Twitter, and, you know, there are memes, they're cracking jokes, they're, you know, all over the place. There's people talking about sports, music, whatever. You know, it's a mixture of stuff. But the political part of Twitter, it's these people that are just so devoted to their party that they can't talk about anything else. They're just so deep into it that it, like I said, it's their religion. And, you know, I used to say this on it, but I'm going to bring this up again, is that the thing that you place as the most important thing in your life becomes your God. Mm-hmm. And if you think about that for a moment, what do you spend the most amount of your energy on? What is it that you spent the most amount of your time on? What is it that you think about the most? That becomes the most important thing in your life. And whether it be politics or religion or money or your job or your family or your kids, that becomes the God of your life. Yep. And so if all you're doing is just turning on the news and just looking for something that's either pro-Trump or anti-Trump, then, you know, that's your religion, dude. And another thing too is that I've noticed, we haven't talked about this yet, is that there are people that are very much against the never Trumpers. And this somehow during the campaign, this became a thing where people were saying, "Oh, these never Trumpers are just, they're not for anybody, but they're just against Trump." But why? I mean, why did this become a thing that you're so upset because somebody dislikes your candidate so much that you had to tag them with something?
Yeah. I think we first started seeing that mindset. Oh, I'm hearing some feedback from somebody. I can hear myself talking. But no, I think I first started seeing that mindset during the Obama administration, because like I'll admit, before I even started becoming more libertarian, I was one of the never Obama people, where it was more about like, just I hated him so much I didn't care who was in office, and I was like, oh yeah, that's never going to lead to anybody bad, like in retrospect, like that's a stupid position to take up. But no, that's a great point by Tim. I do want to real quick jump on something MJ said in the chat, that I apologize, I had to kind of put on hold for a sec. Something he brought up when we were talking about this, and then I just lost it because I'm an idiot. Okay. What's really interesting about people's devotion to Trump is that while most people were devoted to the policy of previous political figures, the devotion to Trump has almost nothing to do with policy. I think that's actually a good concept to bring up, because I do feel like, when I can go back and I can look at my discussions with people on Obama, on Bush, on Clinton, on Bush Sr., on Reagan, and like any of the years I've been alive, there's typically things that are policy related that we're having discussions about. Now, when I come to Trump, whether it's the left or the right, it usually has nothing to do with policy. The left typically brings up a lot of very insignificant things, that like, oh, he's done this in his life, therefore I don't like him. I'm like, yeah, okay, that's fine, but what policies are you arguing against? And the right just ignores what his policies are together, just makes excuses for everything. That's an observation I've had. So I think he brings up a good point, that like the devotion to Trump, and I would even feel like the the anti-Trump thing, it typically doesn't have anything to do with policy. It's more about the person as opposed to what he is or isn't doing for the nation. So yeah, feel free to discuss that. And I'm gonna step away for a second, so you guys have at it on that comment.
Go ahead, Mike.
Or the policy of Donald Trump.
About like the concept of people like ignoring the policy of Donald Trump to attack or promote him. Like how is that actually beneficial to the nation, to ignore what he is or isn't doing for the nation to either promote or rant against him?
Oh, well, that's definitely not beneficial to the nation, but you see that all the time with Trump supporters. We all make jokes because during the campaign, the concept of 4D chess somehow came up, and that continued on after Trump was inaugurated. We're all making jokes now. Anytime Trump makes any kind of decision that is a bad one, or something that we don't agree with, or even something that maybe the right wouldn't agree with, we always make a joke about, oh, this must be that 47D chess, or this must be 541 dimensional chess. Back in March, whenever Trump signed that $1.1 trillion omnibus.
The joke of an omnibus.
How much was that? How much was that?
I don't know. It was over $1 trillion.
It was over $1 trillion, and there were people on the right who were obviously upset about that, because that goes against what they wanted. But at the same time, you have people who supported Trump who were saying, "Hold on now, Trump has something up his sleeve." No, yeah, he doesn't have anything up his sleeve, because he signed this and it became law. And now everything that bill was dedicated to, all the spending that was supposed to go towards, the spending went towards just that. I remember, I think there was, like 400 billion or so that was supposed to go to the Department of Homeland Security, and somehow people were saying that Trump would be able to flip that money and put it towards the wall. And then you have people like Justin Amash and Thomas Massie who are saying, no, this is a continuing resolution. First of all, it's signed into law. You cannot change anything that's in it. Once it's signed, it becomes official, and we have to follow that. So Trump cannot just change something that's already been. He can't just sign something into law and then change it later.
Right, and
no sense.
Yeah, and the other thing too is that it also kept funding Planned Parenthood, which the MAGAs were completely against, and which a lot of people on the right were completely against. And if you remember correctly, also Trump came out at that time and said, "I don't like this bill. I'm never going to sign another one like this, and this will be the last bill like this that I sign." Last month he signed another one exactly like this.
He's going to sign another one in December.
And he's going to sign another one. And this was the issue that I got into. You don't understand strategy, and you have to understand Trump has a plan. And I came back at him, and he refused to respond to me after that because I shut him down, basically, because it did just the pure idiocy of the omnibus and the amount that was spent on, like for instance, the amount of the budget that went towards defense, which is just insane. The United States could honestly cut our military budget in half, and we would still have a larger military than any other country in the world by at least double. The spending is just completely out of control, and that was the other thing that I was going to bring up too, is that the left was so against the tax cuts that they called it the tax scam, and Nancy Pelosi was really pushing this tax scam, so they picked up on this, and this became the far left's rally cry was this was a tax scam. This was something that was just for the 1%. This was for the rich. And I explained to many, many people that the government does not have a tax problem. The government has a spending problem. Mm-hmm. And all tax cuts are good. We should be able to cut taxes across the board. And what most people don't understand is that it's that top 20% of income earners that pay the majority of taxes in this country. 45% of Americans pay zero federal income tax. And so you can't give a tax cut to people that aren't paying any taxes. And so these are things that people have to understand. And that when you get into the people that are very cultish, they don't want to see that on either side. The people on the far left don't want to see that, tax cuts were made to the people that are actually paying taxes, and you can't cut taxes for people that aren't paying. And the right were so on this, saying that, oh, well, the tax cuts were a good thing. And although these tax cuts greatly benefit Trump, I don't care what side of the aisle you're on, I don't care how you look at it, these tax cuts made him millions of dollars. So with that being said, he did benefit off of this. And then you have at the same time the people that are part of the church are saying, well, Trump isn't taking a salary. He's donating his salary, which is about $400,000 a year as a presidential salary. But then when I bring up things like, well, it does cost the U.S. government $200,000 an hour to operate Air Force One. So every time he goes to one of these rallies, he is more than spending his salary on going to these rallies. The amount of times that he has come here to South Florida, to Mar-a-Lago, every time he comes here, it costs Palm Beach County about $1 million in added security. And so his trips to Mar-a-Lago have cost this country tens of millions of dollars. So him not taking a salary really doesn't mean anything to me because of all the money that is being spent for him traveling, all of the money that is being. I mean, when his wife and his son stayed in New York before they moved into the White House, that was costing $100,000 a day to the NYPD in security just to guard those two people. And
but you won't hear the right complaining about that, though.
No, they don't complain about it.
He doesn't take But like, here's my thing is like, because I had a huge problem with how much time Obama spent golfing. I was just like, that's ridiculous. Go do your fucking job, dude. And then Trump comes in and like it was just all the time. The right was just like, he's always golfing. He doesn't do anything. Golfing. And then Trump comes in, and from the last time I've actually looked at statistics, Trump spends far more time than Obama golfing.
Hold up,
and the right says nothing. Go ahead.
Josh, he's not just playing golf. He's also making deals. Look at that. Yeah. Not just playing golf. While he's playing golf, he's out there making deals. He's making so many deals. He's making the best deals because he makes the best deals.
Because he has the best words. So
because he has the best words. Yes.
Well, there was actually somebody that created a website that just counted how many rounds of golf Obama played. That's how insane that got. But
no, like it didn't, like, it genuinely annoyed me because I was like, dude, like, stop spending so much of your time playing golf. Like, I understand you need some time to yourself, but like, go do your goddamn job. You knew what you were getting into. At most, you're devoting 8 years of your life to running the country, and you're set for life after that. You don't have to actually do anything for the rest of your life after that if you don't want to. You're fine. You're good.
You can play golf every single day once you're done.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. So I'm like, but what drove me nuts though is because like I see Obama playing all this golf, and I'm like, this is bullshit. Then I see Trump playing more golf. I'm like, hey, that's even more bullshit. But all of a sudden, the right doesn't have my back anymore on this the president playing golf issue. That's how far the devotion goes, because the left is making problems about it, and all of a sudden now the left is like, well, I thought playing golf was an issue, you know. I was like, hey, you got a point, left, but as soon as you get a Democrat president in and he starts playing golf every day, you're still going to not say anything. Like here's my issue with both the right and the left. Consistency. That's my biggest issue. Like, I can agree with so many things the left has to say and so many things that the right has to say. But my biggest issue with them becomes they flip-flop depending on who is in office. And I think I would think most rational people could step back, look at that. And I mean, like, if you haven't noticed it this last election, I don't know what's wrong with you. Because, I mean, I very clearly, I was of a more mature age by the time Bush came into office. And I noticed there was this kind of like flip-flopping thing. And I wasn't as into politics then, so I didn't pay much attention to it. But then I did notice the massive flip-flop from Bush to Obama. And I was like, holy crap, suddenly everybody just doesn't fucking care what they were ranting about. Like, they only care that the person they want to be in office is in office. Suddenly, Guantanamo Bay wasn't a big deal. Suddenly, Obama's promises to shut down Guantanamo Bay didn't matter. You know, I'm like, even though like in both of his campaigns, that was a promise he made. It's amazing.
And it's still open.
Yeah, it's still going, you know, and it's amazing. Like how, like, you can see people like in the most, I feel like the most obvious example is war. You will see it flip-flop from president to president, depending on whether they have an R or D after their name. And you'll see it flip-flop so fast, and you'll see half of the nation suddenly change their minds overnight on whether they think it's okay to go invade a country or not. Go ahead.
Well, that brings up a point. I just want to bring this up real quick.
Go ahead, and then I want Mike to bring up what he was going to say. But go ahead.
Okay. When it comes to wars, right now the United States is actively engaged in 7 wars.
Mm-hmm.
I put this point out, and I actually had somebody argue with me that they're not wars because we didn't declare war.
Oh, God. Conflicts are wars. I don't give a fuck.
Like, okay, well, you tell the people whose homes are being bombed and whose families are being killed that we're not at war with them.
Here's a legitimate thing I actually want to bring up. This is one of my biggest problems I had with Obama, and it's a reason I have a big grievance with Trump, because Trump does the same thing. Obama literally just changed the definition of war.
Yes.
To be able to go to war. Like, he decided, oh, it's not this definition of war, that's not what no, it's not technically a war. We're going to say it's this now. I'm like, no, you're declaring war. I'm sorry. You're firing missiles at this country. You're putting boots on the ground. You're putting forces in there. You're declaring war on this country. You're trying to depose the leader of that country. Like, yeah, you're going to war, dude. Like, what the hell is, who are you kidding? Except for the people who blindly believe in you. And then Trump does the same shit. You know, he changes definitions. He's like, you know, oh, this isn't what it actually is. And everybody believes him. That kind of shit blows my mind. Mike, I want you to jump in with what you had to say.
Okay. First off, on your point, Obama was able to do that because Bush made that possible. And Congress allowed Bush to make that possible because after 9/11 hit, Congress was so quick to let Bush expand the power of the executive, and that paved the way. Anytime a president expands power in the executive, the next president always takes that power and expands it even more. If you look at the history of the executive branch, you see a lot of that. But the point that I was wanting to make, we have an election coming up here in 3 weeks, which I keep hearing is the most important election of our lifetime.
Until the next election.
First off, I think that I'm getting really old because I've lived through so many of these most important elections of our lifetime. I've been living through these most important elections of our lifetime since like 2008. So every single election, I mean, and this election coming up is a midterm election. Midterms really are not popular elections. Turnout at midterm elections are so very low. It's ridiculous. But
just look into like just any kind of local election. Check out the turnout compared to a bigger election. Exactly. I think what like the point you're bringing up, like oh this is the most important election. It's just a look at who is in charge and which branch of media is pushing that. Mm-hmm. You know, it's typically like people that want you to go out and vote and depose a specific person that are going to say this is the most important election. There's a correlation there. I don't have the statistics in front of me, but if anybody wants to look it up, go for it and challenge me on it because I'm guaranteeing there's a correlation because I've always seen it. But I do think it's a great point. Like it's always this nobody like who do you know in your life, and then you personally, who goes out and votes in local elections from your like city council up to, you know, state senate? Who do you know that actually goes and votes for that shit unless it's on the same day as a presidential election? I'll admit I've missed elections because it's inconvenient for me, and then I kick myself later for doing it because I'm like, oh, I could actually probably make something better in my town, you know, if I would have just went and voted. But you know, like there's a lot of people, you know, they just don't ever consider anything. A lot of people I've talked to, the only time they ever vote if it's the presidential election season.
I can give you a great example.
Go ahead. What was that?
I can give you a great example of that.
Yes.
November 6th, I am considering staying home. I am not sure I even want to go vote on November 6th because, well, the district I live in, Vicky Hartzler is the representative, and she pretty much has this district locked down, so she's going to win. The one race here in Missouri that everyone is paying attention to is the Senate race between Claire McCaskill and Josh Hawley. Now, the message that's being pushed across the entire country is the message of the blue wave and the red wave. We need to elect Republicans because they need to keep Trump's agenda. We need to elect Democrats because we need to stop Trump's agenda. Now, you're telling me go out and vote Democrat. Who am I voting for? It doesn't matter. Go out and vote Democrat. Or you're telling me go out and vote Republican. Well, who am I voting for? It doesn't matter. You need to just elect Republicans. Josh Hawley is a Republican who's running against Claire McCaskill. And Josh Hawley, first of all, is a closet Bernie bro. And not only that, but there's one issue that the right likes to talk about all the time. They always talk about Democrats being gun grabbers. If you look at Josh Hawley's position on guns, he is, by their definition, a gun grabber. Josh Hawley wants to ban quote unquote assault rifles, AR-15s. So by their definition, he is a gun grabber. So
as somebody who doesn't live in Missouri and hasn't followed their politics very closely, I will say the fact that Austin Peterson is not on that ballot is like a huge fucking disappointment.
Agreed.
You guys deserve somebody who was liberty-minded. And I don't care if you don't like Austin Peterson because he's not a pure libertarian or whatever. I've spoken directly to the man. The man has directly been like, hey, do you want me to call you so we can further discuss this point? During his presidential bid for the libertarian candidacy, I messaged him on Facebook, and I was like, hey, here's a question I have. He gave me his answer, and he says, if you don't feel I gave you a very specific answer, like if you don't feel like I answered your question good enough, I will call you and we can personally discuss this to make sure that I get your, have your support, get your vote in this. I was like, okay, nobody has ever done that for me, like ever,
awesome.
And I've reached out. Yeah. Like nobody's ever had that kind of like attitude of like, I really want to connect with these people. I really want, yeah, he was smaller on the totem pole, so he had more time, but still it was something that has always stuck out to me. And I'm sorry, like there are things that he says that I don't necessarily agree with, but the fact that he connects, like he's willing to go that distance, that's something that's made me pro Austin Peterson for a long time.
Yeah.
Because like he really wants people to understand what he's saying, and he's willing to call you on the phone to make sure you understand his point of view. That's something you're not going to see in a lot of candidates. And it saddens me that we don't get to see him in the Missouri race. It really does sadden me.
I can tell you exactly why you're not too. The exact reason why you're not, and it's not because he's a libertarian running as a Republican. Now, he has certain views on things like immigration that, the GOP base does not agree with. Because he's a libertarian running as a Republican, he did that because he thought he'd have a better chance of winning an election.
Real quick. To jump in on that, Ron fucking Paul, like the father of the modern libertarian movement, ran as a Republican. So if anybody's excuse to not vote for Austin Peterson was that he's a libertarian running as a Republican, you're an idiot. I'm sorry. You're a fucking idiot. Because you don't have a really because I'm sorry, if you're a libertarian voting and your decision was based on voting for Austin Peterson was based on like whether or not he ran as a libertarian or a Republican, you're most likely a fan of Ron Paul already. Like Ron Paul has run as a Republican. Rand Paul is technically more libertarian. Who else is there? Like Thomas Massey,
Justin Amish.
Yeah, Amish. There's plenty of people who are very libertarian mindseted, but run as Republicans because that's the only way they can win. It doesn't change it. Go ahead.
Let me stop you there for a second. Bring you back to our original topic. Is that the reason why I believe Hawley beat Austin Peterson in the primaries was because Trump backed Hawley.
Yeah,
that was the point I was going to make. That was the point I was going to make.
That was the nail in the coffin. I'm going to turn off my mic for a sec. Mike, I want you to jump in on this because you're actually from Missouri, so you're going to have more solid opinions than me.
Okay. The primary election here in Missouri was in August. Donald Trump endorsed Josh Hawley, I think, back in June. I think it was back in June. The VFW had a celebration. I think it was like their 100th anniversary or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was in Kansas City. They invited Donald Trump to speak at that event. Donald Trump goes there, and he has Josh Hawley go there. He goes there, and he formally endorses Josh Hawley. You are using an event that you were invited to that has nothing to do with politics. This has to do with the VFW. This is nothing political at all. Not really. I mean, VFW is a special interest group, but this gathering that they were having that day had nothing to do with politics. you use that event to endorse Josh Hawley, and you do this before the primary election. Whatever happened to presidents just sitting back, waiting for primaries to play out, and then you endorse the person that wins that primary? No, he's not doing that. He's picking the winner before the election even happens.
Right, and the same thing happened here in Florida. With our governor's race. We have Ron DeSantis, who was backed by Trump during the primaries, and he won the primary. And now we have Ron DeSantis, who is, in the governor race against Andrew Gillum, who is a Democratic socialist. And right now in the polls, they're neck and neck. And so in Florida right now, it's really, I mean, honestly, it's this choice of, do we end up with a socialist as our governor, or have the Trumpster as our governor? And so it's this really poison that it's making its way through politics in this country. It's that the cult of Trump and the MAGAs are just influencing the elections to the point where it's either you're pro-Trump or you're against Trump. Individual elections now have become all about Trump. And so this cult has spread to every community now, every state. You have these elections and you see these campaign ads all across the country of, this person is for Trump, we should vote for him. This person is for Trump, we should vote against him or her. And so it's gotten to the point right now where, honestly, if you don't believe that there is a cult following to Donald Trump, then you are either part of that cult following or you're completely blind to it, because it's everywhere. And we shouldn't have election campaign ads during primaries or during these midterm elections where it's all about Trump.
Mm-hmm.
And quite honestly, it's at a point right now where I honestly want him to lose in 2020, so other elections can be about actual issues and not just about who is and who is not supporting Trump.
Yeah. No, you bring up a great point, Tim, actually. And I do, it is kind of amazing how so many, I've actually seen a lot of, there's a specific point you made. I've seen a lot of people base their, who they're going to vote for around Trump, whether they like or hate him. And it's disturbing to me, because I'm like, shouldn't you focus on who the candidate is and whether they're saying things that you like? I'm like, no, it's more about if Trump likes or dislikes this person that you might vote for them. I'm like, no. That's a whole incorrect mindset. We should be focused on policies, because, and here's the thing is, my wife, when I first met her, she voted in Obama's first term. She voted for Obama. And then she admitted me. And the next term of Obama, she was like, yeah, I feel like I was misled and I don't like what he has to say. She ended up voting for, and I'll admit too, even in, before everybody in the world, in the second term of Obama in that election, I voted for Mitt Romney because I wasn't a libertarian at that point. I was just more concerned with Obama not being in office. My wife voted for Obama too. Mitt Romney too. And later on, there was one point where she even told me, because she was like, oh, when it comes to elections, I need you to talk to me about it because I don't know who to vote for. And I was like, I don't want you to vote for who I'm going to vote for because I'm voting for them. I want you to vote for somebody because you feel like it's the best person to vote for. And then came along Gary Johnson. And I voted for Gary Johnson because I was like, I'd rather have Gary Johnson as president than Hillary or Trump, because those two are psychotic. And while I don't agree with a lot of things that Johnson has to say, I agree with way more stuff that he has to say. And even though I can personally admit, hey, my vote for Johnson isn't going to make him president, it's going to help. It's going to benefit the Libertarian Party as a whole. So I'm very much for doing that. And then, like, you know, I didn't want my wife to just vote who I was voting for. So it's like, listen, I need you to look into the candidates, read what they have to say, come to your own decision. I'm not going to be mad at you for like not voting the same as me. I don't care who you vote for, but I want you to vote your conscience. You know, she ended up voting Johnson, and it was actually this last election that kind of officially converted her from a liberal to a libertarian, and she actually very much like proudly identifies as a libertarian now because of this last election. She was like, "This what actually like Gary Johnson is what made her look into the movement," and she was like, "This makes way more sense than anything I've listened to. You know, like anything I've heard from other candidates. This makes just so much more sense." And she wanted to vote for the libertarian, and even now, like she proudly now identifies as a libertarian. And it's, I mean, it was neat for me. Like I never pushed that on her. She came to that on her. I was like, you know, if you want to, I never pushed libertarianism on her, you know, and like that was the thing. Is like, if you're gonna get there, you're gonna get there on your own, or you're not. I'm not gonna judge you either way. You know, I love you. Yeah, our politics don't have to be in line for us to stay together, kind of thing. But she came to that on her own will, and that's one of the reasons that, like, I just absolutely do love my wife, is because I know she has that kind of mindset. I don't think, because when I first met her, she identified as a liberal, and I was like, I don't think you know what liberal means anymore. And then later on, she admitted that she was probably more of a classic liberal, not like a modern day liberal. She would look at stuff like modern day liberals are doing, and she was like, wow, that's fucking crazy. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever, kind of thing. But yeah, it's just interesting to me, though, how, like, and I would always tell people, it's like, go into your small elections, go into your big elections, but really look at who your candidates are. I don't care if they're just the main two, or, like, don't ever look at just the main two. Always look at your third-party candidates. And somebody says third-party votes does matter. Bruce said that. Third-party votes do matter in getting issues discussed. And I full-heartedly agree, because even if those third-party people don't get elected, they're going to talk about things that the main two aren't going to talk about. And it helps get that stuff on the stage. That's what we do need in this country, is we need some more dissent. We need more people willing to discuss things that the primary two political parties aren't willing to talk about. Keep things policy based, keep things talking about our policies, not, you know, like Trump and Hillary just sniping at each other over personal issues. Things about policies. That's what we need. That's how we're going to get better results in elections.
Right. And coming back to the church a bit,
yes,
is that I've heard people on that side say, well, Trump cares about us. Trump is just like us. He's the billionaire version of us. Which, I mean, the
that's amazing to think of.
Can be heard. And so they you know, there are people that don't care about policy, because I've heard people say, well, Trump he's for the working man, and if you guys have heard this once, you've heard it 1,000 times when they say, oh, well, Trump is bringing out and letting people know about the forgotten voter, the forgotten people,
which is hilarious.
I'm sorry, but nobody forgot about these people.
Yeah.
This is my message to everyone in America right now. If you vote, no one has forgotten about you, because politicians want you to vote for them. And so you have been targeted in some way, shape, or form in every election. No one forgot about you. To try to, and see, that was part of the message, though. That was part of the marketing of it. Of, oh, well, I'm just like you, although I have $10 billion in the bank. We're just the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. The insanity is just, it's there. It's visible. You can see it. All you have to do is just open your eyes and see it. Mm-hmm. And once you see it, then you'll always see it.
Yeah.
And you know, that's why, you know, I started calling it a church, and start calling it a cult, because there's blind devotion here. There was blind faith in this man, and it's at a point right now where, you know, it used to be comical, and it still is at times, but it's starting to get a little scary, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I would agree. It's very scary. Something MJ put in the chat I want to address is, which I actually agree with him. I don't see this as something we can recover from in one election cycle. Everything is becoming so polarized that there's a good chance that Trump would just be replaced by the next cult leader, which is something I would like for us all to address. And I do want to try to cut this short in about like 15 minutes. You know, if we go a little over, that's fine, but I don't want to drag this out too much longer. But I feel like there's a great point, though, as I do feel like everything has become so polarized. People are becoming so like mindlessly devoted to leaders. And I've seen this from Bush to Obama to Trump, that, you know, everybody's just going to be more focused on political lines as opposed to policies. And people are going to use things like religion to justify their picks. That people are like, I would say a lot of people are becoming more, no, I would say less inclined to vote with their heart and more inclined to vote with like whatever religious belief, whether it's, you know, like an actual religious belief, or when I say religious, I don't mean like actual religion. I mean like the political religion of the cult, you know, the Church of Trump or the Church of Obama or whatever you know, that's what we're dealing with. People are more inclined to vote along the lines of that than they are with their actual hearts, you know, are looking at the issues and being like, this is what I agree with, this is what I don't agree with. I'm like, okay, look, it's fine to, you know, like I voted for Gary Johnson and I've criticized the fuck out of that guy, you know, like I don't like a lot of things he said. I don't like a lot of things he said during the election. But when I had my choices in front of me, he was the one that most aligned with my personal beliefs. So of course I was going to vote for him. And it was also a vote for the party in that situation to help get them attention. But,
yeah,
you know, it wasn't like, you know, I didn't vote for him because I was like so staunch a libertarian, because I was like, if a libertarian runs for office in the next election and I don't agree with a lot of what they have to say, why the hell would I vote for them? I'd rather not vote than vote against my conscience or vote against who I really, really genuinely deep in my heart, not 100%, but I would say mostly agree with. If somebody, like honestly, if somebody ever comes along and I like 100% agree with everything they have to say, I will actually be a little concerned about that person. Because I'd be like, why are they so perfect? But no, it's scary to me. Like when you're starting to make excuses and you can't just admit that there's problems with your chosen one, you know, like that's when you should know. You're getting kind of wrapped up in that cult mentality, which I feel like should be the like the, I don't know, the motto of this whole stream is just this there's a cult mentality out there, whether it's the right or the left. We're seeing it now a lot with Trump, and I feel like it's been more strongly with Trump, and I do feel like that has to do with the right being more inclined to their religious beliefs than the left. But that's the thing, is like, if you're finding yourself getting wrapped up in this cult mentality where you're making excuses for things that you logically should know isn't okay, that should be the red flag for you. Okay, maybe this person isn't the best person to be leading anything at all. Like, I wouldn't trust Trump to lead a McDonald's, let alone the goddamn country, because the guy's a loose cannon. I have no idea what he's going to do next. I don't want to go to McDonald's and just like order my food and get God knows what. Like, I want what I ordered for. I don't even get that with the regular leadership. God knows what we're going to get with Trump. So like, it's just insane to me. So like, that's what, like I feel like what would be my final words, and I do want to wrap this up, and I'm going to make sure you guys both get your chance to get your kind of final words in, would be like, sit back for a moment, take a logical, rational look at who you're supporting. Look through their beliefs. Doesn't matter if they're Democrat or Republican. Look at it from an objective point of view and be like, you know, would I agree with this point, whether it was a Republican or a Democrat in office? You know, would I agree with this? would who's in office matter, for this policy? Do I agree with it personally? That's what you need to be focused on. Those are the kinds of things we need to be concerned about when selecting leaders. So first, I'm going to, Mike, I'm going to turn it over to you real quick. I want you to give me some final points. And then Tim, I'll let you kind of give us a wrap up, and then we'll close out the stream. So go ahead, Mike.
All right. This doesn't pertain to Trump. This does pertain to a very high-profile celebrity, though. I'm sure you all saw, I think it was not this past weekend, but the weekend before, Taylor Swift was doing a concert, and she finally gave her political position. She was criticized for a long time because she stayed quiet about politics. She finally comes out and she endorses support for the Democrat candidate in Tennessee. Don't even know the person's name. Of course, I don't live in Tennessee, so that doesn't really matter to me. But I will say, though, that if you're going out and voting just because a celebrity that you happen to really like is telling you that you should go out and vote, you're probably not prepared to vote, first off. And that kind of goes along with what we've been talking about tonight, as when we were talking about people that Trump endorsed and people who are going out and voting for certain candidates only because Trump endorsed them. The same thing goes with anyone else. You're not prepared to vote if you're only going out and voting for who someone else said you should go out and vote for.
That's a great point, actually. I would say I full-hearted, completely agree with what you're saying. It's a very excellent point. Do you have anything else kind of further to add for a wrap-up statement that you'd want to say just on the whole concept of the Church of Trump?
The whole concept of the Church of Trump, this Twitter account that we made, I remember when Tim first told me about this, because we had talked about this church for months before he made this Twitter account. And
I would say that's something I always it was a correlation I had, because every time Tim would speak up, he'd always say church member or something when he'd be talking about somebody.
He always shows tweets, and he'd always say something like, I found another church member, or here's another church member, or something like that. And then when he finally came, whenever he finally came to us and told us that he was making this account, at first I kind of laughed. But then seeing just how effective this Twitter account was, we've had this Twitter account for 2 months, and it already has 1,200 followers. That drives me insane.
Yeah, and I've only been a part of it for a little over a week now, maybe.
Yes.
I've only been part of this for just a very short time. I've just been somebody watching, and the little time I've had in it where I've interacted with people, I'm getting likes, and some of the ridiculous shit I've said. I would remember, we have our own little DM message thing on Twitter, and I would just say something stupid. I remember it was when I started saying stuff like, you're going to go to hell for saying this. Mm-hmm. And I think it might have been you, Mike, that somebody was in the chat was just who the fuck said this? With a bunch of laughing emojis or something. And I was just yeah, that was me, because I just started pushing it. I felt as far as I could go without making it too obvious, that it was a troll account, and people still started agreeing with what I was saying. It was a mind-boggling.
Yeah. Absolutely ridiculous.
All right. Tim, if you want to give me kind of a wrap up on your views on the whole concept of the cult of Trump, the Church of Trump. And I would say you specifically, given your background and you creating the Church of Trump account, I'd really want to hear what you have to say. Or is that kind of just to wrap it up?
Okay. Well, first of all, I think that the people that get so wrapped up in Trump, the people that are almost to the point of worshiping him, the church members, there had to be something so lacking in their lives. There had to be something where these people need something so desperately to believe in that they latched onto this. And I think it's kind of sad. I think that it is it has gotten to the point where I still think some of it is hilarious, but at the same time, I'm starting to really feel bad for people who are so devoted to this man, so blindly devoted, and who just skip over all of his flaws. I mean, especially when you look at some of the comments that he's made about his daughter that are really creepy. And I mean, the some of the comments that he made about his daughter are borderline incestuous, and it's highly inappropriate. Um, the way that we now have a person in the White House, we have the president of the United States who thinks it's okay to taunt people as if he's on a schoolyard. You're still calling, Elizabeth Warren came out today saying that she's like 1/1000th Cherokee or Native American, and he's still calling her Pocahontas. This should be something that's beneath the office of the president. The same office that we used to hold in such high regard is now just been so diminished by basically someone that's a schoolyard bully. And the other thing that I want to point out as well is that when we give these people so much power over our lives, when we give the president the power to just sign something into law or executive order that affects everyone in the country, that puts troops on the ground in other countries without having to declare war, when we have given Congress so much power, when we are taxed so much that we're so reliant on the government now, that we really need to step back and say, hey, is this freedom that we're supposedly enjoying really free? Why are we so devoted to these people that are now in such control of our lives that we need to step back and really evaluate whether or not we are actually think that we are? And the answer really is no. I mean, we're not at the point where the UK is right now, where they're regulating the size of pizzas, but we're not that far from it. And we do have people in this country right now that, and the one thing we didn't talk about tonight were the Bernie followers and how devoted the Bernie followers are. And we've got this growing socialist movement in this country. And if you look at the politics in this country, then the power that our government has been growing over decades, and the government's been expanding over decades. And so there is a separation between church and state, but the state is becoming the church. And that is the problem that we have. And so I hope that anyone that listens to this or has a conversation with someone that they find is a church member, just ask them a simple question. And that question is, how much do you want government involved in your life? And really think about that for a minute. And when you look at it, then you might step back, and these people might step back and say, hey, this kind of worship and hero worship that I have of the president, maybe that's a bit too much. And maybe I need to look at things a little bit differently. And when they're we have both sides talking about a red wave and a blue wave, like you said before, then these are people that are just strictly voting down party lines. And this is strictly an election now that is, do we support Trump or are we against Trump? And so it's just infected this entire country. And it's sad but true. And I hope it comes to an end very soon. And I hope that the individual becomes more important once again than the collective.
That's an amazing point. I think something that stuck out, I want to address real quick, is the quote, how much government do you really want involved in your life? That's a good point to bring up to people when we're talking, with our friends or family. Everybody gets wrapped up in the political lines, and it's like, kind of really, how much government is okay for you? Are you like, even the left, who kind of tries to portray themselves as like actually the the left is like crazy, like pro-government, and then the right will try to portray themselves as like anti-government or like anti-big government, but then they keep pushing these laws that are very pro-government. So I'm like, I'm sorry, if you're on the left or the right, you know, that's a question you really need to ask yourself. How much is okay? You know, how much do you really want? How much do you want these people, half of which you didn't vote for or you don't agree with? How much is okay with giving these people the authority to have direct implications on your just everyday life? It's scary to think of. And just from the chat real quick before we close up, MJ says, I've been to many coaching camps down south, and the main thing I hear about why people support Trump is they view him as a real man's man. That sort of thing, that's sort of terrifying to what we think a man is. So real quick, before we kind of close this out, Mike and Tim, I'd like Mike first and then Tim to jump in on that comment of you know, people being like, well, I'm going to vote for Trump because he's the he's the real man, or he's a man's man concept. Mike, go first.
Well, one thing that people say about Trump is that he speaks his mind and he tells it like it is. Trump has said so many stupid things. Like, Trump tweeted out something today. He said that he would not accept Elizabeth Warren's DNA results unless he could test her himself. First of all, what does that even mean? And
yeah,
that sounds so freaking dumb. Like, all Trump has to do whenever he gets these little victories like this, because there were plenty of pundits on the right who were just ripping Elizabeth Warren apart over that news this morning. All he was to stay quiet and stay out of it, and that was going to be a victory for him. But he can't do that. He always has to put in his 2 cents, and he always has to have the last word. And a point that Tim made about, you know, Donald Trump being a schoolyard bully, Crooked Hillary, Lion Ted, Pocahontas, low IQ Maxine. Like you said, it's beneath the office of the president. And I mean, do you really want a president who just says things like that? Because, as I was saying before, what one president does, the next president is always going to take it a step further. So we may not ever have another Donald Trump again, but still, having Donald Trump in the White House, acting the way he does, saying the things that he says, imagine someone worse being in the White House. I mean, just imagine someone doing things worse, saying things worse.
That's a great point, I would say. Just kind of like taking to mind, you know, just imagine, I would say, like, when you get wrapped up in this like cycle of, you know, just voting for technically like what you consider the less of two evils, imagine in what is your mind, even the slightly more evil person getting voted in. And one of the things I always tell people too is like, I'm like, I'm sorry, but if you can like admit that, like, if you're using the lesser of two evils argument, you're admitting to me that both candidates are just straight up evil. I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm not going to cast a vote for evil. That's my response every time. I will not cast a vote for evil. If I feel that both candidates are so bad that I could even attempt to use the lesser of two evils argument, I'm admitting that both candidates are evil. Correct. So I am not going to use that argument. Like, I'm not going to vote for one of those two people. I'm going to vote for I'm either going to vote for somebody I feel like that deserves the job, or I'm not going to vote at all, because why would I vote, you know, if I'm not going to vote for somebody I really believe deserves the job? And I feel like if we could get that kind of mindset across, it would definitely help this country. Tim, go ahead, Mike.
One more thing too. A lot of the people who support Donald Trump are blue collar workers.
Yes,
especially people. No idea what it's like to struggle. If you ever hear Donald Trump doing interviews about what things were like for him in the beginning, like I remember one interview that I heard one time that really sticks out, where he said that things were very tough for him in the beginning. He got a small loan from his father for, I think, what, $2 million? First of all, $2 million is not a small loan.
Yeah.
Second of all, if you have $2 million, you're not struggling.
Right.
Like, there are people who like legitimately struggle in life who are supporting Donald Trump because they think that he's just like them.
Yeah.
No. This guy was born with a golden spoon in his mouth, and that golden spoon stayed in his mouth throughout his upbringing, and then he was already set by the time he got on his own.
Yeah.
Because he was able to take out a small loan of $2 million from his dad.
Yeah.
Really?
No, agreed. Full-heartedly agreed. Tim, I'm going to let you, if you have a last minute thought on this to kind of wrap it up, and then I'll go ahead and close out the stream.
All right. First of all, with Trump being a man's man, I'm sorry, I don't consider a guy that drinks Diet Coke and eats fried chicken with nothing like a man's man. So, I don't think he could tell the difference between a screwdriver and a pair of pliers. I'm sorry.
Just for people, I've been rewatching Parks and Recreation recently, so I'm like, Ron Swanson is a man's man. I don't care what you have to say. If you're not meeting Ron Swanson, you're not a man's man.
Ron Swanson was based on me.
All right, go
but
ahead.
he's a girlier version of me. Anyway, another thing too is that any guy that cheats on his wife, I think, is a scumbag. And Donald Trump has cheated on 3 wives. And whatever your position may be on what a man's man is, that's not a man's man. That's a scumbag. But to wrap up the whole cult part of this stream where we started, I just want to say that if any cult member, any of the Church of Trump that wanders into the stream at some point in time and listens to it, there is therapy, there is help.
Mm-hmm. No, like it's funny, but I wholeheartedly agree. There's help. Hey, follow us on Twitter, listen to us, be open. Be open to what other people are saying. Don't be so mindlessly dedicated. Nobody should ever be so mindlessly dedicated to a leader that they are unwilling to hear out an opposing point of view. I would say even the people I'm the most dedicated to, I'm not unwilling to listen to criticisms of that person, but to really look at what that person's saying to be like, okay, do I agree with them? And I mean, for me personally, I would say the politician I currently most identify with is Larry Sharp, but sure, before I knew who Larry Sharp was, before I really became a huge before the first time he ever called me on the phone and I actually got to have a personal conversation with the guy, I didn't know who he was. I had to look into it, and it wasn't just because people were like, he's so great, and I was like, well, I need to know what he thinks. I need to know how he acts. I need to know about this guy before I'm going to put my faith behind him. I feel like faith needs to be rewarded in some way, not just given freely. So yeah, Larry Sharp, somebody I just would follow to the ends of the earth, but that didn't come easily for me. It was something I felt like he had to earn, and I do feel like he has earned that right for me. To get that kind of dedication from me. Him and his team and the people that really follow him very closely, the people that work with him day to day. I've talked with them, and that's not something I give away freely anymore. Getting a vote for me might be one thing. Getting my dedication, getting my admiration, that's a whole different story. And I feel like that's something as people we should be more open to, considering really paying attention to the man, the woman that we're following. Do they really deserve that dedication? I would say, like, if I could just kind of wrap the whole stream up in one thing, is just that statement. Make sure the person you're following deserves that level of dedication. Don't follow them on a religious belief, or don't follow them like with that religious mindset of where you're just utterly devoted to them. And in the end of the day, you can't really explain why. Don't do that. Don't be that person. It's not helpful for you. It's not helpful for the country. Don't ever, whether you're right or left, or libertarian, green, what the fuck have you, don't ever have that religious dedication without feeling like that, like genuinely believing that person has earned it, based off of actual evidence. So I do want to thank my panel here, Tim and Mike. Thank you guys so much for joining. I had a lot of fun tonight. Maybe we can do another one of these kind of in-depth things later on in the future. It was definitely a lot of fun. I would say come back to the channel on every Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Mike does a live stream. He's been doing a great job with the live streams for the past couple months. And then Tim is usually on a lot of the streams. I'm hoping to hop in to more of them in the future, as I have been. I haven't been very involved in the YouTube channel recently, so I'm hoping to get back more into the swing of things. But yeah, definitely check on every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Mike is going to be hosting different streams. He always has a great discussion. He's done an amazing job with hosting. Tim is always a good person to have on stream because he always has a lot of good insight. So I do want to thank you guys for joining the stream, and it was great having you on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So if you guys are both okay with it, I'll go ahead and close this to an end. All right. Sounds good. So, yeah, like I said, join us again on Wednesday. You'll see Mike here hosting. And then follow me on @sarcasm_liberty on Twitter. Any live stream updates, you'll find them there. And then both of you guys, Mike and then Tim, if you want to plug your Twitter handles real quick, definitely follow these guys. Any good live streams, if you don't see them from me, you're going to see them from one of these two. So go ahead. Real quick.
All right. Mine is @Ginger Liberty. Yes, Ginger, you heard that correctly.
All right. Tim, yours?
I am @BolderThanYou, Paleo Libertarian.
Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
Hey, check us out on Facebook.
Yes.
For Facebook, Sarcasm and Liberty. We're also on Instagram. We are on Minds. If you're on Minds, check us out @Sarcasm Liberty. Also, if you're on Minds and you know how to use it, can you teach us, because we don't understand it yet?
Right. Well, yeah, Mike, are you running the Minds right now? I can't remember.
I am not. I believe that's Jason who's doing that.
Okay. Yeah, no, like we're not entirely sure about the Minds thing. We're still trying to figure it out. But yeah, like if anybody's an active Minds user, let us know. We'd love to hear some advice on that. But no, it was a great stream. Gentlemen, thanks for coming. Those of you in the chat, especially Alicia and Bruce and MJ, thank you for you guys' input. I appreciate it so much. And yeah, we'll see you again on Wednesday, hopefully. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Night.